Continuing with sharing things going on in our communities, and Lynn.
So being from a small community, getting a total difference between the big communities and listening to what all's going on there. But we recently had a movie premiere in Little Old Land O'Lakes it was just one of those little micro movies. It was called The Last Rung of the Ladder. It was very interesting to hear how it was produced, why a lot of it was produced in Land O'Lakes. And it was about suicide, and it was suicide prevention. And so it was interesting. I wouldn't say it was a happy movie, but it was interesting. Artistry Gallery is opening back up. They were closed for the winter, and it's been wonderful to watch because they've had a big transition in the original members of Artistry Gallery. Some have left and new people have come in. I am leaving Lola as of July. I'm the last founding member, and I'm leaving a year early because they are doing fantastic. They are so good to allow them to feel, because they always look at me. So, what did we do? No, it's now time to just move on. But I'm going to get more involved with public art. So in the town. Speaking of Lola though, Youth Art Month was again really, really good. We do our local schools, the high school, the grammar school that we have, but we also did homeschoolers, and then we also included Waters Meet, which is 60% Indigenous people. So it was wonderful to have their art, and it's just fantastic. Make Music Day is coming up. We are the smallest one in the state and the second smallest one in the country that does Make Music Day, which is an international program. You should all be involved. So anyway, so that's going on. Campania Center has got a bunch of their programming has started and is moving forward. It's been very interesting to watch music spreading all over. Ben's Camp in our town is doing it. We do music every Thursday all summer long. Every place where you look, Minocqua, there, Corby Park has music, Manitowish Water, so it's really cool to see those musicians are pulling in some money. And so plus Nicolay College, which, we've talked about colleges and the problems that colleges have, they are doing arts and enrichment. They've really moved into the arts program. And so that they have this wonderful thing. It's beginning stargazing. So sitting in science with the arts, and it goes on and on and on. And so if you want to see anything, I've got their little brochure, but I need my notes back. So that's what's going on in the little small communities.
Thank you.
Me?
You.
Since we have so much Madison representation,
I just want to hear about Fitchburg and Fitchburg only.
Oh, yes. Yes. I feel like there are two things I had to say.
Did I just steal them?
No.
Okay, good.
Oh, I went and saw at Chazen, if anyone gets a chance to go. I learned about the Voyager expedition or whatever from the 70s and the messages to space. And when my husband falls asleep to space shows every night, and I go to bed with like an eye mask and earplugs every night. But one night it was about the Voyager, and I was like, and just raptured with it. And so when I saw him the next morning, I was like, why did you never tell me about the Voyager? And he's like, what are you talking about?
You didn't learn in school Voyager 1, Voyager 2?
No, I was born in, I don't know.
Don't, just keep going. I know. I don't want to know.
You know what the yeah, and it's like the record and stuff. I thought it was and there's some movie that came out recently. Anyway. Why are you laughing at me?
They're laughing at themselves.
So there's a really cute movie there, by the way. That it was so good, wasn't it? I wept so much. So there's an exhibition inspired by the Voyager mission, but it's called Messages from Earth. So a portion of that exhibit is at the Chazen right now on the ground floor. Nice. And so I was like, we have to go. So we went, and it was really not at all what I expected, but really interesting. A lot of 3D art, all like some digital art, some
Golden record.
no golden record. But there was an old school computer that was like this big. It was like the first like and that was really cool. The computer, it was really like, it was like this
Which
weird
is strange because normally it'd
processor.
be the size of this table.
Exactly.
It was this
I
room.
remember the first computer we had was the size of this room.
It was called
Oh, yeah.
Minitel, I think. Anyway, I highly recommend it if you get a chance. It's just very interesting and like there were Renaissance paintings. It was a digital piece of art, but they were like Lady Gaga was this woman in a pastoral setting. It was just very, very interesting. So I highly recommend that.
And are you keeping up that Voyager 1 woke back up and sent something back recently? Okay, just keep going.
What?
Because I saw that.
Yeah. So just keep going.
What? Remind me. It's like me figuring out that songs of my childhood were all dirty. This is like blowing my mind. Okay. Yeah, I had no idea. Okay, on a separate note, so I'm involved with my culinary side, with the Dane County Food Collective, right? So Dane County Food Collective, they're really focusing on, making sure people in the food industry are taken care of. They have good mental health. They're really focused on the mental health aspect right now. And they partnered with, the Layered Onion. So the Layered Onion, strangely enough, I got connected with them. The woman who founded the Layered Onion was my client at my first ad agency job in Madison. So when I moved here, and I was like, Linda Seif, you were my, at Wisconsin Medical Society. And I always found her so inspirational. I remember we had breakfast at the Curve one day, and she just was such a cool woman. Well, she founded it because she was trying to publish a book and she had mental health issues and just couldn't get it published. Well, they do a publication called The Shallot. And so The Shallot, this last issue that just came out, essentially is Dane County Food Collective. It was inspired by culinary artists that work in culinary. So that's what the latest Shallot issue is. So that was a cool kind of two of my worlds coming together. But if you haven't checked out the Layered Onion, their initial membership was actually international. They intended it, they thought it was just going to be a local organization, but they have members all around the globe of artists that are partnered with them. And then she was like, Jen, I haven't talked to you in so long. I would love to interview you for my podcast. So I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. And it was my second time getting interviewed for a podcast. And it was actually quite emotional. Like her questions kind of like got to the core of stuff that I didn't even realize. So if you feel like hearing me cry on a podcast, but it was good. I love Linda. She's just such a warm person and a cool person. So that's what I've got. So check it out.
Send us a link.
Yeah, I'll look it up.
Oh, yeah, that's a great idea.
Yes, please do.
Just Voyager 1 woke up, just type it down. Karen Ann.
Right. And if you go far enough out in space and then turn around, you can get the I Love Lucy for the first time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause those waves are still going.
Yeah.
But you gotta turn around once you get there. Now you know what goes on in my.
I know, I love it. I love it.
So two things I'll talk about briefly, because I know we're getting toward that time. One is local. So Stevens Point is where I live, Posse Paquina. And it's got a kind of a strange city government that supports local arts to the degree that it can. And one of the ways it supports it is it runs this place called the Riverfront Arts Center. Fortunately, some local benefactors, Dale and Annette Shu, gave another $1 million and that helps a lot. But it was a city-run initiative beforehand. At any rate, they've employed one employee and she does the entire job, which I think is just reckless of that young woman. So she comes up with this idea to do an exhibit all about surrealism, because in rural Portage County, that is top of mind for a lot of our art enthusiasts. And she tapped into, who knew, west side of the river, we have actually two nationally known surrealistic artists, Daniel O'Neill and Deanne DeLaurent. And so they're kind of the core of this exhibit and you know, I didn't know that much about surrealism either. I thought it was all just like dripping watches. Yeah, you know, I really didn't know that, but I went to the opening. And I had a chance to talk with Dan O'Neill, and he explained something to me that surrealism is the juxtaposition of the expected and the unexpected. And that it doesn't have to hit you over the head. Dali didn't have to do a whole painting of melted things. One qualifies. And the other thing he told me, and I didn't know this, was that in the late 60s and early 70s, Wisconsin was a national hotbed for surrealistic art. And so that was new news to me. So I loved that. So go and see the exhibit. It's on until the end of May. And this young woman who I think is taking on so much is going to mount a surrealism salon. So you can do like a table of 4 and have whatever conversation you might have in a surrealist salon. Yeah, so interesting, right?
On that, yeah, exhibit. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's really cool, really cool. So that's thing number 1. Thing number 2 is I want to brag about a relative of mine, James Frechette Jr. Knopf, he's long passed. He'd be 90 if he was still alive. The Baird Center, BAIRD, that's in downtown Milwaukee, recently got a hold of me because they own one of his major wooden sculptures. And they're taking it out of storage because I think people here know that there was a little bit of a kerfuffle around what they were doing with their art during the reorganization. But this is going to be put back out. And so they wanted to reach out to me for help with the text panel. And because I believe that in Community Voices should be the ones leading these conversations, they're like, you don't need to talk to me. You need to talk to his son, Richard. So we had a really wonderful conversation with the late artist's son, myself, and the representative from the Baird to put together the appropriate text panel to go with that. Yeah, so that's gonna go on display. I think the opening is June-ish. Yes. And so there should be doings about that.
I can't wait. There's so much art that's going into that and all the artists are mostly local or from Wisconsin. I've gotten a couple sneak peeks because I'm nosy.
Well, look for Jim Frechette's carving.
Nice.
Walnut carving.
Cannot wait.
His last name?
Frechette, James F. Frechette. His father, James G., is also pretty well known because he was tight with Melvin Laird and all of that governmental stuff. But James F. Frechette is an incredible artist.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Mr. Potter.
He's Googleable.
Ah, yes.
That's my takeaway.
I'll just mention something that you're probably not familiar with at all, and I haven't mentioned it in the past. I live in Hudson, which is right on the border, the scenic St. Croix River, which is a national scenic river. And across the border is Stillwater, Minnesota. Currently serving as the president of Artreach St. Croix, located in Stillwater, but it serves the entire valley. And one of their programs is a mobile art gallery, which is a trailer that simply goes around to the state parks and to festivals, June through October, both sides of the river. And this year they'll focus on artists from the Minnesota Correctional Facility in Stillwater. So it should prove to be an interesting show, but also it pops up at places where folks aren't expecting to encounter art. And then we get the feedback from that, and it's pretty great. So I don't know how long they've been doing it, but very nice program.
Awesome. Sounds amazing.
Where can we get information about where it'll be going at different
Yep.
times?
So just go to the Artreach St. Croix website. Artreach is one word.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for asking.
All right.
So a few months back, it might have been right around our last meeting, Howard Markline, Senator Markline, and Representative Tranel had a listening session at our public library, which I went to, and spoke about the arts and funding the arts, specifically the bill that Todd Novak had sponsored for rural arts funding. And of course brought up that we're, last in the nation too, and everyone's going, so that's always a hook, so I continue to do that, and all of our gallery I have a little bit of a legislative update, kind of like what's happening, and just to kind of encourage people without being too political, because we're a nonprofit, we can't have a political position really, that they should, if they don't like what they're hearing in terms of the current standing of where we're at, they should contact their legislatures and let them know that they're not happy with that, which I know has been done quite a bit. So, and there's been a group writing postcards to both of those guys too about how their displeasure with our arts funding. So
Yeah, I would tie it with Travis, especially if there's a way to get your tourism entities involved to amplify that. Travis and I served on the Governor's Council of Tourism for many years together, and I don't know if is he still on? Yep. So
he did back that bill from Todd Novak. It's Howard Markline had not supported that. So I continue to do that, and I think people are really receptive to that. And part of what our work is at the gallery that I run is the community engagement part too, and to connect people, not just to come in to see the work, but also realize that there's a deeper kind of ecosystem that we need to work on, and building that up is a big part of what we have to do as well. So I try and communicate that all the time. And I'm seeing more like with our organization, and similar to like John, we're right at the corner of Illinois and Iowa and Wisconsin. So those borders don't stop the artists from interacting. So we see a lot of connection with Dubuque, which has some pretty good funding going on in their community, and then they're really working on their art ecosystem there. And Galena, Illinois, which is a big tourist town. So we're getting this kind of like mix between all of us, between Platteville and those two other kind of major art places. And there's a nice thing happening with all the artists from different places kind of going to different things. So I'm really excited about that connection. There's also a scenic art loop, which started up, which is a tour. There's maps that go out all over, and people can come, and if they're touring the area, they can pick up this map and it'll list different studios or galleries that you can go visit, and then they have different events on there. So we're tied in with that group as well to try and bring more people to the region. The exhibitions we're even booked for our main gallery all through 2025. Every year we do an open call so that anyone who submits work, no matter what level or how you approach your work, gets into the show. And every year we have people who've never been in an art gallery before, who just maybe make work a little bit, but then get to feel like they're part of this whole thing, not excluded. And then at the end of the year, we always do a juried national show of small works, where we look for prominent jurors to we put a call out on Cafe, this platform, and so we have a big show at the beginning of the end of those two things. And in between, we will have a regional show, probably a local show. And then I try and have at least one show from a local city, or like Milwaukee or Chicago or Minneapolis, St. Paul, or Iowa City. Next year, I'm really excited because we have 3 sculptors from Chicago who are going to show next summer, who are pretty well known. So we're really excited to have them. So bringing those people, artists from other cities to Platteville and showing them that there is a place for art here, and that art belongs in all these different places, has been really great. And we're getting tons of responses to that call to the artists who they're like, okay, where are you at? And and we have a really excellent gallery, so that's part of the attraction for that. So we're really working on that as well. We like that kind of that larger scope of where we're trying to reach out to and who we're trying to engage with our community. Let's see what else. We also are building our connections more with the University of Platteville. They have a BFA program. We just finished hosting 6 BFA shows. So it's really great for the students to have their work in a professional gallery as they move on in their career. It also gives them an opportunity to have other people see their work when they're off campus. So we're getting a stronger and stronger connection with the university, which we really like. We also are building with other parts of our community, like we host the Platteville Farmers Market in the wintertime. So we're getting people who don't go into art galleries coming in the wintertime because they go into the farmers market. And this year we closed down for a couple of months because no one really comes in that much in January and February. And the woman who runs the farmers market, she's like, when are you guys gonna put more art back up? She's like, oh, we really loved that last show. So I'm really enjoying that these other groups of people who are not part of the art community are coming in and really actually realizing that they value art in their world. So that's a really great connection too. We also work with the Black Platte Community Network. They have an art program every summer. They produce a bunch of work with their group, and then we show that as well. So we're really trying to encompass everything. I was telling the curator of our show that's opening tonight. She's like, we could, and was a curator in Minneapolis. She's like, we could probably do more programming and that's got some fancier artists or whatever. She didn't quite put it that way. And I was trying to tell her, that I thought of it more like from my, organic growing time is we're here really about building the soil, less about cultivating a certain plant. So we want to build and have all these different groups come in and not just, sort of high, more professionally known artists from the cities. That's great because we need that too, but we need all those things to have our healthy, art soil community. So that's kind of how we look at all of that and how we do all our planning. What else is coming up? There's a festival coming up that's just south of Platteville called the Driftmore Festival, and it is a electronic dance music festival. It's been going on for maybe 10 years. There's probably 50 to 60 artists, and then there's also visual artists. And it's like a little Lollapalooza kind of thing. And there's many hundreds of people that come from all over the Midwest to that. And I will probably have a sculpture installation in that this year. But that's really great because that's just another part of our creative community that's pretty robust and gets bigger and bigger every year. Let's see, what else have I got? I think that's about it. Mineral Point, Shake Rag Alley's kind of doing their thing. Mineral Point seems to be, moving along as it does. It's always got a pretty robust community there. So, I think that's about it.
Thank you, Bill. All right. Under old business, I really don't have anything for the board chair's report. I think you'll find that I will share throughout the meetings more than just share things for a board report. But I do want to thank you guys for all the time you give. If I'm slow to reply to emails beginning soon, it's because my season is starting now. So things will get a little crazy for me. But I'll pass it over to George.
Okay. In your board book, there are two reports, the executive director and staff report. So we missed it last time. We had this little thing called Wig Cut going on. So I wanted to make sure you had it just so that you could keep track of what's going on. I think it's important to note how this meeting came together because, as you know, Creative Communities is the big elephant in the room normally during the spring. So this time you had the Governor's Conference on Tourism, you had the apprenticeships, you had the 50th anniversary project. And I think you've said it a number of times today, but I'll echo it. And the fact that Karen and Caitlin are out there talking to these groups, the value that those groups are getting from having had that experience goes so far beyond the check. And so your patience as we bring these things together with the 4 or 5 of us, thankfully, that we've had Sarah around with us, it was really appreciated. So, excuse me.
No, it's not.
No, the one thing I really focus on and very quickly is to say, in March, the other 8 directors of the Arts Midwest region came to Madison. And the purpose of the meeting was to talk with Arts Midwest about the relationship between the states and the regional. Because in the transition of moments around Arts Midwest, decisions have been made, and sometimes the 9, as we call ourselves, the 9 directors, are wondering how they're coming up with these ideas. And we are the only ones that are technically called members, and we are the ones that pay dues. And so therefore, we think we have a very
Yeah.
specific relationship. So they invited a woman named Mary Margaret Schoenfeld from the East Coast, who we know from our work with Americans for the Arts, et cetera, to facilitate the conversation about how this goes. And it was interesting, the timing of it all. There was an article about covenants and contracts. And so we started having that conversation. So rather than thinking, you do this, you must do this, you know, the membership mentality, we pay you dues, therefore you give us X. Rather, we created a covenant or committed to creating a covenant that said, we are in this together, right? And so you do this, we do that, we all do it for. So I volunteered to take the first shot at drafting the covenant, and with Karen's, of course, wonderful editing skills, it went to the rest of them who said, well, that's great. We don't need anything more. So, but what they did was they did strengthen it by making some comments. We've returned it to Arts Midwest now for them to consider. And so the staff is looking at it with the eye to bringing it to the full board and then really approving this covenant and revisiting it every so often. So it says things like there should be 3 directors on the Arts Midwest board. There are 9 of us. There are 3-year terms. So there should be 1 in every class. Simple. But, and as the head of our team, like I said, you know, if we all agree on this thing, it could be a model for all of the regionals to consider of how the states and the regional organizations work together. So, so it's with the staff now. We'll see what goes next. Going forward, there's a lot. Because we'll bring the 50th anniversary in for a landing. But at the time we're bringing it in for a landing, we're submitting the next biennial budget. And we've got to do this survey that we talked about. Because we had a conversation, Ann Katz and her lobbyist and I. And while the lobbyist had some ideas about what we should do, Ann and I were in lockstep in the notion that we're not going to hand something down from Madison. Right? We're not going to give you the solution, but rather we need to talk to the constituency. What is it that they need so that we can develop something so that when we submit our budget, the DOA will be happy for what they've received. And frankly, the governor's office was so good to us last time by saying 100 million for the arts, but that came out of the clear blue sky. So if we do this right, it will be helpful to them as they develop their budget, and maybe it will be a much more palatable thing to have kept in joint finance next year. So, Karen, Caitlin, anything you should say before we let all these nice people go?
I have just sent you the first of 2 emails about the regional assignments and forms and all that stuff. And yeah, I actually am really serious about having a sort of a scenario conversation, role playing, whatever, at the September board meeting. I just think even those who feel really comfortable, it's just good practice and it will help mentor others if they're not as comfortable. Although it sounds like you're all comfortable, which is great. Yeah, so the other one hopefully will come to you later today with the actual counties to which you are assigned and all that great stuff. And if you have any passion points on, I know this isn't on my list, but I really want to, please let us know. That would be completely awesome. Yeah.
And one more thought, and maybe it's a call out to Dale, but we should have the reimbursement forms.
I was just
before
gonna,
people run out the room, so.
I was gonna say, just so LaShondra was aware, if you wanted to talk, if one of you want to talk about the reimbursement forms.
Let's just have a how-to right after the meeting. I'll just walk you through it.
Thank you. All right.
Anything, Caitlin?
Caitlin might have something here.
I just didn't know if you mentioned or you wanted to.
No, please do that.
Yeah, we've been meeting with Wisconsin Humanities staff just a couple times this winter, spring. What season is it? What month is it? We've met with them a couple times and we're planning a kind of road trip, September. September.
So we'll see what the state level organizations. And so a lot of times the state is intimidating to people. So this is our attempt to say, we're not intimidating. These are 3 state agencies, embedded within the government that are very much here for you.
So.
And it'll just be good to, I mean, see who's in their humanities network. I think there's a lot of overlap, but I think there's also folks that just aren't on our radar. So I think it'll be a really good trip.
All right, thanks. Any new business? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Marcus moved.
Is there a second?
Schwarzkopf seconds.
All in favor? We are adjourned.
How about that, Jane?
Thank you, Dale.